Coming up next on this special edition of SUTV News, we introduce you to a handful of Shippensburg University students who have unique stories to tell.
We'll talk to a student who was born male but now identifies as a woman. Another who says the world wasn't made for her.
And follow the journey of a young man who was discharged from the Marines for his personal honesty. You'll hear these stories of everyday students.
Plus, meet everyday student turned groundbreaking leader, Shippensburg's first African-American female student senate president.
Those stories and more right now on Hidden Barriers, an SUTV News special report. Good evening and thank you for joining us for Hidden Barriers, an SUTV News special report. I'm Kyle Rogers.
And I'm Rachel Flores. For those of us studying here at SHIP, you know the campus is busy during the day, so many people walking to and from class.
But have you ever stopped to think about the people you pass? What kind of lives they lead? What makes them so unique? Tonight we'll introduce you to some students who have all faced some kind of barrier in life. Barriers they have all managed to break through.
We begin with the story of a non-traditional student. Before he came to SHIP, he worked for years in the telecommunications industry. He has 4 kids from middle school to adult, but taking the non-traditional route alone wouldn't make the student unique. The U.S. Department of Education estimates at least 40% of all college students are non-traditional. But a couple years ago, this student suffered a disabling stroke.
SUTV's Brandon Smith introduces us to one of WSYC Radio's most popular hosts, Charlie Mitchell.
88.7 FM is WSYC Radio.
Communications has always been a passion for Charlie Mitchell.
This evening,
The 44-year-old WSYC DJ has been a part of the industry for almost 2 decades. His story starts in 2005.
I worked for Comcast for 17 years as a tech ops manager.
Though the job was hardly as flattering as it sounded.
It's a big word, big title for babysitter. That's pretty much what it was.
But Charlie was supporting a family.
They give me that motivation. They give me that drive.
And had too strong a work ethic to quit.
But I did the job. I was always an overachiever. I do things to the max all the time.
Overachieving soon combined with a heavier and more difficult workload.
So challenging that I spent anywhere from 13, 14 hours a day at the station.
Increased pressure began to take its toll.
And when I wasn't working, I was out trying to relax from working really hard.
And eventually, Charlie's body would cave under the stress.
2005, I had a stroke.
The stroke disabled Charlie physically.
I still have a lot of arthritic pain in my right leg, right arm, right upper shoulder.
And emotionally as well.
After 17 years of being in the telecommunications business, I found myself at home.
Unable to return to Comcast, Charlie, now in his 40s, became a student at a convenient school.
I chose Shippensburg University because I'm only like 13 miles away from this campus. I was really, really intimidated in coming here.
But his spirit could not be crushed.
I'm a conqueror. It doesn't make a difference what kind of diversity is placed in front of me. I'll sit down and I'll figure it out.
And conquer he would. Charlie quickly got involved with student media, finding a niche on the airwaves.
I have a show that I do on Saturday nights from 8 to 1. It's called The Love Ship.
He continued to get involved from there. Charlie directed live events for SUTV, though things weren't always easy for him.
Some days are great. Some days, it takes everything that I can do to get out of bed.
When things seemed unbearable, Charlie remembered just why he was here.
This is my second life. I'm starting my second career.
And though Charlie's second story is still unfolding, one can only be hopeful for the ending.
I've been given a chance. I've been given a chance to do good. And I'm going to take advantage of that. That come aboard every weekend.
For SUTV News, I'm Brandon
We
Smith.
are Shippensburg's best kept secret. This is The Love Ship.
From the bustling city streets and metro stations of Washington, D.C. to the quiet farmlands of Shippensburg, the transition from urban to rural life can often be a hard one for some students. For Jada Williams, it took some time getting used to. Diversity isn't just about the color of someone's skin or how someone looks. It can be as simple as where someone is from and the culture derived from that place. Senior Jada Williams talks about what the transition from urban to rural was like for her.
Could you compare Northeast Washington, D.C. to Shippensburg, and what are some things that you like or dislike about both cities, both towns?
Comparing it, there in DC it's chaotic. Here it's like quiet. Like it's like still. Like it's like the difference between like throwing stones in a pond and the pond being like absolutely still.
Although she
So,
enjoys the peacefulness,
that's
she
how it
does
is to
miss
me.
the accessibility of
It's
DC
like really
and
quiet
everything
here,
else big city
peaceful.
life has to offer.
So I like that I can like walk a few blocks and then be in like a different neighborhood. Like I can go downtown in like 3 miles. But here I go like 2-3 miles to Walmart and it's still quiet.
But there are some shortfalls to both city and rural life.
I don't miss the traffic. It's no traffic here. Like at the most it's like farming equipment driving around the roads or like a horse and buggy we have to avoid. So like that's rush hour basically. But rush hour there is like 3 hours, you know, trying to go like 10 miles. So stuck in traffic. No museums, no train rides anywhere, like nothing. Just not much to do, like outside of school.
Jada describes what she calls the Central Pennsylvania mindset as a difference in cultures.
It's just people's priorities. I guess people everywhere have different priorities. Like people on the West Coast probably more concerned with like going out on a boat and going surfing, but here it's like hunting. Like people talk about hunting in conversations, which I never really talked about before. I don't know, like the activities people do here are different from the activities that people do. Like when I grew up, like we didn't hunt or anything like that. Like off-roading, that is a big thing out here. People ask me if I off-road my car all the time, and I'm like, what?
She knew Shippensburg was a quiet town, but she wasn't quite prepared for such a drastic change in her environment.
To live here, I don't know, it was really hard the first year, like accepting how little there was to do. It was very hard, but you know, I could always like go home over breaks and then it was like everything to do. So it was like a good balance between nothing to do and a lot to do. Just so quiet, like, and then the smell of farms. Yeah, that was interesting to have to grasp. Like even now, like my window faces a stop sign and I hear horses and everything, but last week was the first time I heard like a horse neigh. Like it was so loud and scary. After 4 years, I'm still like accepting things about small, quiet town.
To split her time between Shippensburg and Washington, D.C. Her internship program allows her to work at the Letterkenny base while she studies and then back to the nation's capital during school breaks. Williams plans to graduate next year.
Many Shippensburg students, like me, commute. Driving to and from campus takes a lot of gas, so to fill up, we just head to the closest gas station. But for communication journalism major Dee Grasso, there are certain gas stations she can't go to. Not because the price of gas is too high, but because the credit card machine is.
From the outside, it looks like any other car. Inside,
as you can see, that the original pedal is still there at the bottom, and there's a long rod with another pedal at the top, so it's like the same as a normal car, just extended. Mobility is definitely a barrier. Being in, I mean, this world is made for average type people. There's no doubt about that. Challenges I've had are definitely in the dining hall. I'd probably say 75% of the things in the dining hall I cannot reach, where I have to either ask for help, which I don't like doing. I've never been about that. I would rather, if I'm even at the grocery store, I'd rather climb up like all 4 shelves just to get something I can't reach than ask.
she had to move dorms because of her height.
I was unable to reach, lived in Maori, and I was unable to reach the card swiper. So I had to be transferred to McLean, where I could reach the card swiper.
Even filling up her gas tank.
Pumping gas. I mean, I have to plan my route of where I get gas because some, like the Sheetz, I can't reach the credit card swiper.
Dee is shorter than most Shippensburg University students. In her early teens, doctors said they could make her average height.
I had the chance to, my doctor asked me when I was probably in my early teens if I wanted to do limb lengthening surgery. It's very risky surgery. It takes about 7 to 8 years, where they actually put devices on your legs and your arms and they stretch like the screws to extend them. And so over a span of 7 to 8 years, you're of average height.
Wow.
And it's very risky just because it stretches your bones so much. The chance of them breaking or being very brittle is very high.
That didn't appeal to you at all?
No, I didn't think for 1 second that I would go ahead doing that.
But there's one aspect Dee hopes to overcome.
My biggest fear, I would say, not necessarily my biggest fear, but I worry about it sometimes is a guy not accepting me for me.
And her contagious laugh compliments her big personality.
I mean, you don't let your height get in the way of anything.
Not at all. Not at all.
Dee graduates next week, and she hopes to someday get a job within public relations at a hospital or a medical facility.
Still to come on Hidden Barriers, she was just elected the first African-American female president at Shippensburg. Meet Comfort Dixon when we come back.
And meet one former Marine who was discharged from the military for being gay. We'll talk to a ship student whose sexuality ended his time in the service. Next.